Hi, it's day 5 for our creative writing lesson series that I have been walking you guys through over the last week, I guess. We're going to continue this well into next week, just so you know. So if you haven't gotten to all the lessons, we are going to follow up with the more creative writing lessons next week using this exact same prompt. I don't think in the last lesson I went over the prompt, so I want to do a refresher for this day. So again, our prompt is: your main character has been chosen by NASA to spend time on the International Space Station. You're going to write a fictional short story that tells about a small moment that happens while that character is aboard the ISS, not your teacher. This moment can be funny, it can be exciting, or even scary. And I want you to spend some time developing a great main character, which we did on day 1, a great setting, which we did on day 2, and a series of events, which we did on day 3 and 4. But now what we're going to do is put all of that work together in our rough draft. So all the work that we've done so far is going to come together. So we did together a plot development diagram, or as I guess I did as you listened for yesterday's lesson. So hopefully you worked on your own plot development, which is what you were supposed to be doing. For today, you're going to use that plot development diagram to help you make your rough draft. So if you don't have a good, firm plot development diagram that looks like this, you need to make sure you do that first before you start a rough draft. It's going to help you be a lot more clear with your ideas. So what I'm going to be doing today, honestly, is just walking you through my thinking on how I would outline or how I would draft using my outline, my plot development, how I kind of think out loud. So it'll be a little bit of a long one, but just, bear with me. I'm going to put the final draft of what this looks like in your guys' slides as well. But the video really is going to help you see, how I'm walking through it and how I'm thinking about my ideas of how to bring this plot development to life. The biggest mistake that some people make is they make a great plot development story arc with the exposition and their rising actions and their climax and their falling actions, and they get all of that work in there, and then they just copy all of these things down, and then they have a paragraph. That is not what we want from you in creative writing. We want you to use your imagination. We want you to use that this is really where that fourth element comes into play: the descriptive language, the figurative language, the dialogue, and using adjectives and adding more detail, really bringing that point of view to life. So far, honestly, in my plot diagram, I haven't established if it's first or third person. And giving the clear plot and character development that you've worked so hard on, just extra oomph, basically, using those other 2 elements of narrative writing. So let's go ahead and just review what I had yesterday. So yesterday, whenever I was working with you or day 4, I guess, just in case you're not doing these in order, what I was working on with you is what was happening in the beginning, and which is our exposition, what happened as the rising action, and then following in with the actual details of, okay, she goes here, then what happens, and then she does this, and then how does this person react, and what does she do next, and filled in some of those holes from the previous day of just the outline. So we're just getting more and more detailed with our story. So what I chose to do for you guys on these slides is you are given these 2 slides, which I'm going to go over in a second, on slides 12 and 13. But on slide 14, it explains what you're doing for today, which is you're going to begin writing your rough draft in Google Docs. You're going to make sure to indent paragraphs and lines of dialogue. You're going to use the teacher's example to help you write a high quality rough draft. So you're going to have that teacher's example not only in this video, I'm going to go over actually typing it with you, but I will add that into the slide after I do this video. So you want to make sure you're following all the directions on here. It can be done in a few ways. Like for my students, if you're in Mrs. Smith class, you'll have the Google Doc already created for you, and it will be on your that day's writing lesson. It'll just be added on, and then you can use that Google Docs that's already been assigned to you. If you're in another 4th grade room, your teacher may decide to do it that way, where they already make a Google Doc prepped for you, or you may need to simply go to Google Docs and create a new one. All of you should know how to do that. That's definitely something Mr. Hamill's taught you and you've done in class. But if you have a question, just ask your teacher, how do you open a Google Doc? Or you can literally just Google it and type in, how do I open a new Google Doc? And you'll find a video. If this is the case, make sure to click share though and share it with your teacher, or else they're not going to have a copy of your rough draft, which is not good. And then the last option is to simply go to the assignment and click on add or add a Google Doc. It's actually on the assignment part of Google Classroom. There's a button that says add. If you add, and then you'll see the Google Doc symbol, the little blue rectangle with the little lines come up, and then you can begin typing your draft there. So those are your options. Again, if you don't know how to open a Google Doc, just ask your teacher. But please type this draft on a Google Doc, because if you're trying to type on the slide or you're trying to write it on a piece of paper, it's going to be really difficult for you. If you want to do it on a piece of paper, if you feel more comfortable with it, that's fine. Use the video, I think on slide, I've lost track at this point, but I think it was slide, slide, this one right here. So slide 5, it actually tells you how to upload a picture. So if you want to write it out by hand and you want to upload a picture, then you are welcome to do that. Okay, so don't forget about voice typing. So I made a video, and that is on the 4th grade website under the how-to videos page, and it's how to use voice typing in a Google Doc, which most of you should know how to use. I'll show you real quick, but don't forget about that if you're intimidated by typing. So I'm going to go ahead with my story. I'm going to go into my Google Doc, which I already made for myself here. And I'm just going to go ahead and start thinking I have, by the way, my plot development. You guys don't see it on my screen, but I have another screen where I have my plot diagram. The plot diagram is this one. I have this on another screen. If you do not have a second screen like me, which you probably do not, you want to make sure that you do a double side by side so that you can see this while you're drafting. Or if you have the advantage of having a printer at your home, I would have your parent print just this slide. Don't print all of them. That takes way too much ink, but just this slide. And then if you have that available to you, that'd be great. Or you can do the good old toggle back and forth, which is not ideal, but it's totally fine. Hopefully you know your story well enough you don't have to keep doing that, but you do want it available for you to see, because you don't want to stray away from all the work that you've put into this project. So we're going to go into going ahead and start drafting. So let me get set up here. I want to make sure I'm ready to go with my creative juices. So first I'm going to start off with simply my title, which I've done so much work with this story that I already had a title in my mind. If you don't know your title, please don't worry about the title. That is the last thing that you need to worry about. But hopefully you've done so much work with your story at this point. Now you do know. Some people make the mistake of trying to come up with their title before they even start diagramming and character development and all of that jazz. So I'm going to call it the lunchtime disaster. Even though it's not really a disaster, but who knows? It could be. She could have been having a real bad day. So we have my character, Amber. Her name is Amber Marquette. You always want to start your story off with introducing. So the first part of my story on my diagram, I'm looking at it right now, plot development diagram. It says the story begins at 2 p.m. with Amber finishing a computer repair on the ISS. I am not just going to type what I wrote on my diagram, guys. I'm going to elaborate. So Amber Marquette loved her job. So I'm going to talk about that. Loved her job aboard. Ooh, you guys are going to have fun watching me make a lot of typing mistakes. Aboard the International Space Station. And then I'm going to put ISS behind it because that's the abbreviation that I'm going to use from now on. But, and we want a comma before that word but some days, like today, were very tiring. Because remember, we talked about she's exhausted. So her work repairing an important computer. So her work repairing an important computer she was making the final repairs. Now, I want you to keep in mind, this is not going to sound perfect right now, and it does not need to sound perfect. So if I make a few mistakes here and there, that's okay, because right now it's all about getting all of our ideas down on a piece of paper. We are drafting it, and that is what we're going to do. So, in my beginning, Amber Marquette left her job aboard the International Space Station, but some days, like today, were very tiring. Her work repairing an important computer, she was making the final repairs necessary to bring the computer back online. So, I messed up there, and I am going to fix this. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Her work repairing an important computer. Let's see, what did I miss up there? Her work of repairing an important computer had I want to talk about what time it was. Had started. Now, I don't want to say it started at 2 p.m. because remember I wrote on my thing the story begins at 2 p.m. So we're just talking about when she started working on it. It was really early, so it was at, we're going to say 5 a.m. Ooh, if I have to get up at 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. this morning. Okay, so I did want to make sure I put that. It was now, what did we say on our exposition? It was now 2 p.m. and she was making the final repairs. So that makes a lot more sense. Not perfect, but at least it makes more sense. Now, if you noticed, I got done with my paragraph or my beginning of my story or exposition, and I went back and did something really magical. It's called rereading the story that you wrote. I cannot tell you how much people underestimate rereading their writing. If the only reason I caught that mistake was because I reread what I was writing. Okay. Now I remember on that Google Doc it said to make sure I do indentions in my paragraph. So I'm going to make sure I use my tab key, which I don't think on your Chromebooks you have a tab key. So, oh no, you do. Just kidding. So use that tab key, boys and girls. You have a tab key spelled T-A-B. All right, so here's where I know I've written a lot and I haven't used any dialogue. I'm actually going to write something that she's thinking. So I'm going to write one more turn. Got it. So she's kind of like thinking to herself. And she's like, yes. So Amber, she's murmuring. Let's say she's murmuring. Amber murmured. How do I spell murmured? I always forget. Murmured to herself. Ooh, apparently I spelled it wrong. Didn't like that. That's all right. We're going to leave it. To herself as she secured the last part, because, that's probably really important in space, is securing the part of the computer, because she got to put it back together that she had taken apart. I know that I see that red squiggly line, but right now I just want to draft my ideas before I forget them. So I'm just going to keep on going and I'll come back to that. So a sense of accomplishment, because how does she feel after she fixed this thing, right? So a sense of accomplishment came over her. Okay. But what did she feel? But it was quickly followed by an intense wave of hunger. So I didn't just go straight into being like, she was super hungry. I explained, how she was feeling about fixing and being so exhausted, but she had a sense of accomplishment. Then I brought in the hunger. So it's important for you to make sure you're doing things like that in your story. She realized that she hadn't eaten since her quick breakfast. Oh, goodness. At what time was it? 5 a.m. That's right. So bringing in, why was she hungry? Did she not stop for lunch? Like, has she not eaten all day? Did she eat something really light for lunch? Did she not get to eat lunch because maybe somebody else was eating lunch in the food room and she couldn't get in there because it was too crowded? Make sure you explain like why they are feeling the way that they are. I'm going to go to my next paragraph because it's a new topic here. So my next part of I'm looking at my plot development. I have the part, I'm going to put little check marks by it probably mentally. So I got my expedition. I have that she realized she's hungry. So the next part is she floats to food storage. So this is a new scene. That's why I put a new paragraph. So each time you have like a new, it's like a whole different thing happening, or not whole different, but a new thing happening, start a new paragraph. So one of the things Amber looked forward to the most in her day was her lunch in space. She loved her lunch in space. I want to make sure I make her lunch be a big deal, or her eating her lunch a big deal, because if I just be like, she had to eat lunch, that's boring. Okay, so one of the reasons why this is such a huge conflict, or why this is such a climactic thing, is because one of the things Amber, I'm going to stop saying she, one of the things Amber looked forward to the most in her day was her lunch, okay? In space, for sure. It was the coolest thing ever. So lunchtime allowed her to relax, which they don't get to do very often, and really enjoy the fact that I'm just going to put the fact that she's one of the small team of astronauts, one of the small team of astronauts orbiting Earth. Okay, so one of the small team orbiting. Oh, astronaut. She's an astronaut. We make sure we put that. Astronauts orbiting the Earth. Now, if you didn't know all that talk about the International Space Station as a reader, you have no idea at this point where I'm at. Orbiting definitely only has one T, but that's okay. Earth is capitalized because it's an important place in the beautiful, and we want to make sure we say where she's at in the beautiful. I'm going to use that ISS. That's why it was so important at the very beginning to put ISS behind International Space Station. I don't want to have to keep typing that over and over again, even though it's a narrative. I mean, even a book writer wouldn't rewrite that over and over. So she's in this beautiful International Space Station. It was also the time of day when she got to enjoy her favorite space food, and we're going to talk about what her favorite. So this is where we're introducing again why lunch is so important, why it's her favorite time of day. So make sure you elaborate on your character of like the reason why what they're doing is their favorite thing, or why whatever it is that happens is a big deal. Okay, so this is setting the reader up to understand why her lunch is such a big deal. So it was also the time of day when she got to enjoy her favorite space food. So I'm going to type that. It was also the day, our time of day where she got to enjoy her favorite space food. I'm just going to leave it at that. Her favorite space food. Oh, I'm going to add the mac and cheese. Mac and cheese. We don't want to just say favorite space food and not say what it is. And she's gonna drink mac and cheese and lemonade. You know what? Just for kicks, I think I'm actually gonna add. I don't have this on my development chart, but I think I'm gonna add a dessert. So mac and cheese, brownies, and lemonade. So I'm going to add a little dessert just because I think that it would make it a little bit more interesting than just saying mac and cheese. So mac and cheese, brownies, and lemonade. So all of this is prepared from a pouch. I want to make sure I give my readers that, of course. All right, so I've described what she's doing, why it's important. Now I'm going to move on to brownie time. I'm going to move on to her, what she would say when she realizes that it's brownie time. So Amber thought. So this is a thought to herself. Keep in mind that thoughts out loud is dialogue as well. So she carefully had it from where she was. So we haven't talked about that yet. We haven't talked about her moving yet. So that's why we want to make sure we do that next. So she carefully headed from where she was working to node 1, and this is just from looking at the International Space Station map. I saw that they were nodes is how they locate different parts of the space station. So that's why I have that information. So node 1, where her favorite meal awaited. Okay, so for the sake of this lesson and you not having to listen to me for God knows how long, this rough draft goes on for a while. I write a pretty good story here using my development. So what I'd like to do, instead of reading the rest of it out loud to you and typing it for you, is I'd like you to think about everything I've said so far. Think about the fact that everything I've written has a purpose, okay? Everything I've written goes with the mini lesson that